is a different video. It's going to be about meeting people while you're in San Pedro. So I've been here over a year, even though I originally came for just 3 weeks. And one of my friends that came from Canada suggested I do a video on dating in Belize because he was trying to find out whether it was a good place to come meet locals because he's single, or how the dating scene was here before he decided if it'd be a place he'd want to move. And what I decided to do instead, though, is talk about just how to meet people, because many people do ask how it is that you can figure out if it's a good place from a friend group perspective. Do people have common interests? What kind of activities are here? So I'm also going to talk about what it's like if you're here on your own, because many of us have came by ourselves, both females and males. So it's way easier to meet people here. It has a small town feel, and because a lot of people have moved from somewhere else, they're very friendly towards new people. There is, of course, a mix of different expat groups, many different age ranges now than when I first came, and then, of course, locals and many tourists, especially now that it's coming back after COVID. So what if you want to see who lives here versus who's a tourist? This can be very hard, of course, and if you meet someone that you're hoping you can keep hanging out with and you find out they're leaving 3 days later, it's not obviously as good as if you're meeting people that are actually here for a long period of time. One tip that I tell people when they're here is that if you're looking throughout a bar and you see people that have Yeti cups with stickers on them from the local restaurants and bars, those are people that tend to live here because they collect the stickers over time and bring their drinks to the bar. I usually bring a glass of ice water with me as I go out because you want to keep hydrated as you're out, but you can tell people that way a little bit. And I will go through some of the activities people do as well so that it helps with figuring out where to meet people. So one thing to just mention is it is a really small island. It's 25 miles long, and in terms of how information is shared, you would definitely say it's like a small town, so just keep that in mind. And then the other little thing to note is that the north and south tend to be very different, and I have an example of that I find kind of funny, is that I live south on the island and my friend Mike lives north, and I met him through a common friend that lives south. And when Mike and I started hanging out, we were talking about how he's been here 18 years or so, and so he knows a ton of people, and so do I. And so we were just figuring out if we knew people in common other than our friend Steve that we have in common. And it turns out that we really didn't know almost anyone the same. So he knows a ton of people, I know a ton of people, and realized it was quite different. So I started going north a little bit more because that's where he is, and we'd go to different restaurants and stuff like that. And so I have gotten to know more people on the north side. Same thing with the solo women group. There's people from the north and from the south. But that is one thing to note, is that depending where you are, you're going to see different people. And I do have some videos comparing grocery prices between the north and south already posted, but I will do more even to talk about real estate on the different parts of the island going forward. And a picture on this slide is a really fun one. This was what we did Christmas Day. So I had a friend in from Canada then, and it was a fantastic day. And that's at one of my friend's houses in Mahogany Bay at their pool. So, not being home for the holidays is hard for people, and we had a lot of our friends that were away, but you can see we still had a great group of people here. So I'm quite outgoing, so I'm able to meet people easier than some. And I'll give some examples of that. So being out at Secret Beach one day, I met my friend Kate, who was at the next table with her daughter. And as we were talking, I realized that she was a runner like I am. And even though she lives north, we actually will meet somewhere in the middle and actually run together, which we both really enjoy. I also meet a lot of my neighbors. So when I was at the yacht club, I met lots of people that I still know today. Some of them actually have just came back into town after leaving back to the US for a little while. Another thing I do is when a new restaurant opens up, I often go there because I found a lot of people that are opening restaurants are actually people that have just moved here. So I have a couple examples of people that I've been hanging out with that I met because they opened a restaurant and we started talking to them. So my friend Mary owns Mesa Bistro, and after going there a couple times and a lot of us were talking to her and we really liked her, I said to my friend Annette that maybe we should invite her out to dinner when we all went out, and Mary ended up being a really great addition to our group. And then I also was out at a new smoothie place and met the owners there and invited them to our New Year's dinner just because, again, people move here. They don't really know anyone at first, so it's great to just invite them out and see if they have common interest to people you know. So also, of course, it's important to do activities you like, and that way you can talk to people that also enjoy doing them. So I've met a lot of friends through karaoke because I like that. And another different way I've met people is actually through couch surfing. So this is a way to meet tourists, but when I was in my tiny homes first, I had one of them available because I was living in one, so I thought, why not put it on couch surfing? And I met a great gal coming in from Mexico, Dahlia, who ended up being a great fun person to hang out with, and she's a YouTuber, so she did lots of videos, and it was a lot of fun. And even just sitting at the bar stools in different places, I can meet a lot of people. So if you like to play games, there are cribbage tournaments 3 times a week on the island, so that's easy to get to know people there. Also, there is euchre tournaments, and I had never even heard of a euchre until I came here. And one of the people that own the condo below me at Ambergris Lake actually were in town a little while ago, and they taught me how to play this, and that was great because I actually really enjoy it. So I went to my first euchre tournament last week. Another thing that a lot of us do is walk the dogs at the Humane Society at Saga. So it is located on the south. So most of us that go live south. And I found out about this through my friend Steve. So every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., or some people come a little later, we meet out at Fort Dog and we walk the dogs. So that's a great way to meet people. And some of us go to breakfast after we do that. Another way to meet people is through events that happen. So for Christmas, a lot of the bars had Christmas collection events where you could bring toys and they had raffles, things like that. So a lot of the expats that live on the island go to those events. Another group that I have that I go to is called the Solo Women in Belize through Facebook. So it was started by Susie, who lives in Placencia, and a lot of people that are here by themselves as women joined into this Facebook group. And I kept seeing messages come up talking about the fact they wanted to meet people in San Pedro. So I started up a group event every month where I called it the Solo Women in San Pedro group. And so the first meeting we had over 15 people show up. So it shows how many of us are here. And the last 2 events we had actually had new people showing up. So different people are always coming in, and that's what I'm realizing. So at the last group we actually had someone that had just got here a week ago by herself. So it is a very expanding market, and that is one example of how you can meet people. And there's lots of different Facebook groups. So if you're interested in a certain activity and you don't know if people will like it, you can go on to the Ambergris Caye expats or Belize expat Facebook groups and just put a question in there or first search, because for example there was one up a little while ago asking if people like to play pickleball because people are going to set that up at some point. So is it safe to live here? Well, as I already mentioned, we have a ton of single women that live here. So obviously people do feel very safe here. And obviously, just like anywhere else, you should use common sense, because if you're walking out in the middle of the night by yourself, probably not the best idea. Now, we do have a curfew, so because of COVID, you can't really be out past midnight on the weekends and 11 during the week. So people aren't out as late, or they shouldn't be. But as I mentioned, there's many people that move here on their own, so they're happy doing so. And it is easier to meet people here than I found in other places because most people are from somewhere else. I have a friend that actually had lived here for a long time, for over a year, went back to the US for a few months to check out different places and realized that it just wasn't as easy to meet people, and has recently just came back to the island. One other thing to get used to here is people coming and going. There are a lot of people that will come, here for a few months and then they go back home. So it does get a little bit hard if you only, I would guess if you only had a small group of friends and then they leave, you'd probably be starting all over again. So it is great to meet a whole bunch of different people. So you always have people to be around when you're by yourself, especially if you are an extrovert. For some of the people that don't go out a lot and like to just be home on their own, it's a great place as well. The holidays can be hard here if you're by yourself, but I did show already how great Christmas was. Same thing with New Year's, but because we're in such a great destination, if it wasn't COVID, it's very easy to convince your family and friends to come visit. And now that Canada's opened again, I've had a lot of people already coming to visit. So what about dating? I have asked different people where they meet. if they've met here. So one guy from the US, for example, that's dating and living with a local, he actually met her on Bumble. So that is a possibility, using some of the online dating services like Tinder and Bumble. But a lot of times tourists will pop up on those apps, so it might not be as good as it is back home where everyone you meet lives in the location. So basically the same as back home. If you get out and meet people, you will probably find people to date a lot easier than if you're staying at home. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.